Americans are going to wake up one day and this country is going to be radically different, radically changed. By the time that people get on to understanding how bad the situation is, it's going to be too late. Now, I've been everywhere along the border, from the RGV, Roma, La Jolla, spent a lot of time in the Del Rio sector, all the way up to El Paso on the banks. I've seen what that looks like. I've seen that devastation. I've spoken to fellow ranchers and most importantly, fellow Texans, and seen the devastation on their lands, their properties, their families. These people, the drugs, the illegal aliens, the exploitation of children and the modern day slavery that the border crisis promotes, it's coming right here to our neighborhoods.
This is not an influx of innocent women and children seeking asylum. This is an effort by transnational criminal organizations to invade the U.S. and leverage weak district attorneys nationwide in a wave of crime to spur chaos and expedite the collapse of the United States. Two issues are at the top of the list of concerns that many Americans share: inflation and crime. Whether you vote or not, whether you pay attention to politics or not, you notice that prices have increased across the board. You know that you spend more than ever, and this is intentional. Both national and international organizations want this to happen. You know that horrific crime seems to be not just in the big cities and urban areas, but it's everywhere. We see video of toddlers casting disdain on police officers. We hear of younger and younger people committing acts of violence and theft in small towns with no regard for life or property. We make a grave mistake if we see this as just a border problem. This is your problem, right where you live.
Of course, we recovered that AK-47 last night. It started off as what should have been a simple traffic stop. Deputies hit the lights, the vehicle sped off. We ended up with a pursuit. The vehicle misnegotiated a curve and rolled. Two of the bodies, I still don't have all the reports on yet, so I'm not exactly sure, but two were transported to the emergency room in Uvalde. Those were illegals. The driver and a co-principal were apprehended. We're working on the driver right now, but that was in their car, along with the Glock 40 caliber pistol.
Kinney County, Texas sits on the Texas-Mexico border. Brad Coe is the sheriff of Kinney County, Texas, and has been dealing with this invasion of illegals for years.
We seized pistols. We used to maybe 2 or 3 a year. One year we did 14. We thought, holy cow. And now we're doing 12, 14 a month because everybody's armed. And it's getting kind of turning back into the Wild West. It was earlier this year, deputies were involved in a shooting. A smuggler tried to run over one of the deputies. They were protecting themselves. The kid was 15 years old.
That 15-year-old was from San Antonio, Texas. Mexican cartels reach into our nation's high schools to try and recruit our youth through every social media app available. Sheriff Coe explains that teenagers are offered $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 for every person they drive from the border into our nation's interior. That's likely how a 15-year-old can afford an AK-47. That's likely how lonely, fatherless teens can afford brand new weapons and fancy trucks. When the law is ignored by those we elect to make and enforce the laws, that disrespect that they have for the law spills over into every aspect of our society and cements itself into our culture. And when the first act of a person who comes here is to disrespect our law, it should surprise no one that the person will likely disrespect other laws that protect life and property. On the highway into Del Rio, Texas, a homeowner crafted a front yard billboard with his own personal message. At various points on the fence that lines the highway, others have erected another very personal message. Homeowners love it when the law is enforced and despise those who intentionally allow crime to happen. Based on his campaign rhetoric, Biden promised to reverse Trump's stern approach to border security. And sure enough, Biden acted as he said he would. This culminated in a PR disaster for both Biden and border czar Kamala Harris, where in Del Rio, Texas, the illegal population swelled to 14,000 camping out or near the bridge by the port of entry. The move was then on to hide the swell of illegal immigration from the public's view. It also put pressure on Texas Governor Greg Abbott to do what Biden was not doing, treat the border and Texas land as sovereign and secure it. Under Article 1 in the U.S. Constitution, states have the right to defend themselves from an invasion. Abbott himself referred to what was happening on the border as an invasion less than 6 months after Biden took office. Despite this discussion of invasion, the border has remained porous under Biden's tenure. Abbott, who was in a primary fight with several opponents, tried a series of steps to appear to contain the problem. In the meantime, Biden ignored any attempts to stop his open borders agenda and pushed forward with his plans. When asked, the head of DHS insists today that the border is well controlled. They're not referring to the type of control we need. They're referring to the type of control that they want. The control they want is to allow this intentional invasion to continue without much interference from the media or the public. To accomplish that, this was the next action by the federal government. U.S. Customs and Border Protection announced that it would temporarily close and reroute traffic from Del Rio to Eagle Pass in order to respond to the urgent safety and security needs presented by thousands of migrants waiting underneath the international bridge connecting Del Rio with Mexico. This took the 14,000 illegals out of the public view, but it didn't stem the flow. If anything, the surge increased. While those here illegally were taken south to Eagle Pass and processed, plans for a new facility began that would be erected near Camado. That rather large facility exists today and sits less than a mile from a National Guard encampment. It's a bit ironic that those tasked with helping to secure our border, our National Guard, bunk so near the facility that processes a form of unlawful amnesty for those who are here illegally. This intentional invasion brings crime. It brings crime to your doorstep. Lawlessness persists, and costs for the damages that occur in its wake inflates the cost of goods that we pay at market. This federal government under Democrat control will not stop this intentional invasion. It's up to the states. A 20-foot wall runs adjacent to the 480 loop in Eagle Pass. This 2-mile wall was erected by Texas Governor Greg Abbott as a deterrent to illegal immigrants entering Texas. But it doesn't really serve as a deterrent. On Monday, July 18th, 2022, with temperatures well over 100 degrees, people from other countries waded across the river to reach the U.S. in Eagle Pass, Texas. At the northernmost point on the short $25 million wall, many here illegally were politely processed by U.S. Border Patrol and then given a bus to their next destination in the process. 10 minutes later, this footage was shot at the midpoint of the wall. As you can see, Texas DPS, U.S. Border Patrol, and National Guard vehicles are all there to politely assist in the processing of those here illegally and to help them get on the bus to their next stage in the process. A few minutes later, transportation vans filled with those here illegally emerged from private land at the southernmost end of the wall to take them to their next destination. Governor Abbott made other claims to say he secured the border. He tried a vehicle wall. He tried a short wall of shipping containers. He erected fence with razor wire. But smugglers avoided the razor wire and easily cut through the chain link fence. With every picture and video he released, Governor Abbott also used each attempt to fundraise. Nearly 24 fundraising emails insisting that he was securing the border were sent to supporters in a short span of 5 months. Governor Abbott raised over $55 million in border wall donations from patriots around the country. But Abbott's wall, Abbott's fence, Abbott's vehicles, and Abbott's shipping containers haven't secured the Texas border. The Texas border is no joke, and is as porous today as it was when Abbott was first elected 8 years ago. No one can solve a problem that they can't see. Government must be transparent, and we must tell the truth about the performance of those elected. The truth is very simple. The Texas border has never been secure. Politicians from both parties have worked to keep it from being secure. The violence done to American citizens, the drugs that destroy families and communities, the homes that are vandalized, the property stolen, the human beings trafficked and used. We live in a time when heroes must step forward and do the right thing, if only for the reason that it's the right thing to do. You might be that hero. Your elected representative can be that hero. But it's certain that we suffer from a lack of heroes. Those who cross at these points of entry, such as the 2-mile wall in Eagle Pass, either have no ID or they have no criminal history that can be ascertained. Who are they? We don't know. Are they tied to the cartels in any way? Some certainly are, but how many is unknown. In areas beyond the public's view, there simply is no fence. North and south of Del Rio and Eagle Pass, no barrier has been erected at all. Sheriff Coe, one of our heroes, explains how smugglers and criminals leverage the preoccupation with those coming to the waiting buses by the river to cross at unprotected points along the border.
So you've got Del Rio, you've got Eagle Pass. Everything that comes out of Del Rio, whether it be foot traffic or smuggling cases, 90% of it wants to go to San Antonio to the nearest, that's a big hub. So they travel east. You know, you always hear, well, they travel north, they travel north. This part of the country, because of the way the river sits, how it comes down this way, they travel east. Now you get down here in the southern part, you got Camado, you got Eagle Pass. Major checkpoints on 277 and 57. Now we do have a major checkpoint on Highway 90. But here, they truly do go kind of northeast. That's there by design. And that's to push the smuggling cases, the smugglers, up the northern routes, which makes them easier to identify.
Right in Del Rio, the city's Department of Public Health serves as a midway point for some of those here illegally. The building has Texas DPS and Texas Emergency Management standing watch to ensure everything moves smoothly. Retired 30-year Border Patrol veteran Frank Lopez Jr. knows how to recognize the illegals who freely walk the streets of Del Rio while waiting for their bus to arrive. That bus will take them to a taxpayer-funded destination. He stopped one of those illegals and asked about his experience.
De la prensa.
Hola, buen día.
Buen día. ¿De qué nación son? ¿De qué país?
Venezuela.
De Venezuela.
Sí, señor.
Sí, no, pues nosotros estamos interesados.
Yeah, so what they were saying was that, they crossed an Eagle Pass, apprehended by Border Patrol, turned themselves in, and then processed at the Border Patrol, facility. They have 2 of them in Eagle Pass. And then he was turned over to Mission Border Hope, which is another NGO down there. So part of it is they, help them arrange for bus tickets, air travel. They communicate with family.
Each person processed gets a manila envelope filled with new government papers.
It's their documentation from Border Patrol, but also, their itinerary, so they probably have their bus tickets in there and stuff like that. And it just happens every day. I mean, there's just 3 of them.
And they're illegal. They're just casually walking around in Del Rio.
Yeah, they crossed the border illegally. They entered it. They waded across the Rio Grande River.
Right.
So that's that's a thing. They violated AUSC 1325, which is illegal entry. So yeah, they entered illegally. But under the Biden administration, they're being processed for amnesty. Trump and even previous organizations, they would have been set up for 8 USC 1325 illegal entry under, in this sector, Operation Streamline, which was a joint effort between the U.S. Attorney's Office, Border Patrol, ICE, deportations, and they call it Operation Streamline because you were caught, you were processed, you went to jail, you served time, and you were deported. And the Biden administration took all that away.
Wyatt Watson does private security for landowners on the Texas border.
The cartel is our enemy. They're the ones we need to be fighting. They're the ones that got to be thrown out of Texas. What we're being told is a bald-faced lie. And I don't know any other way to put it. It pains me to have to sit here and tell you this. But I couldn't tell you if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, and I have seen it with my own eyes.
For every smuggler who is apprehended by law enforcement, Sheriff Coe says that 8 or 10 make it through because the invasion is overwhelming our resources. Once past checkpoints and patrols and sheriffs, these criminals are free to go anywhere in the country that the cartels want them to go. And they do.
And until we look at it like that, then we're being deceived. I'm telling you, we're being deceived. We have to protect the sovereignty of Texas.
These photos taken by Wyatt are a fact of life. He sees the women and children who are smuggled and trafficked. The cartels bribe or coerce landowners to allow the cartels to use the land for whatever purpose they want. As they move east and northward, crime occurs.
Last year we had a Polaris Ranger stolen. The rancher, or the hunter, actually backed it into the garage, into the carport, disconnected from the truck, went on about his business. Comes back 2 days later. The trespassers had by hand moved the trailer out so they could unload the Polaris, hot-wired it, and off they went. And we followed it as far as we could because they were driving through fences. They weren't staying on the road, they were driving through fences. And we found it about 3 months later, about 40 miles from here, and it damaged fence, and they ran out of gas, they pushed it off into a ravine. And of course the insurance company covered it, but it was a $30,000 machine. And stolen vehicles, I mean, I don't know how many stolen vehicles we've had this month, but by the time, of course, it's a stolen vehicle, and they're not stealing the cheap stuff. The one we had the other night was a 2020 Ford F-350 Platinum Edition, dually, nice truck. That totally trashed the inside, went up in a pursuit. Goes through a fence, goes in about half mile cross country, tearing up axles and everything on the vehicle, and they bail out. The insurance company's got to cover that. Your insurance goes up, my insurance goes up because of things like that.
Absolutely.
And they're getting more and more sophisticated every day, and we are outmanned, outgunned, and outfinanced because the cartels are the ones that are fronting all this.
Everyone associated with this video agrees on one thing. It's not the government that runs the border. It's the cartels that run the border between America and Mexico, which should be an embarrassment to every government official in the United States. Why would anyone allow this to happen? It's never wrong to consider money as a motivation. It's also no stretch to call this a booming industry. NGOs, or non-government organizations, have been awarded huge contracts to expedite all of this movement. If you think about it, with the number of women and children indebted to the cartels for getting them to the U.S. border and beyond, your tax dollars fund and facilitate human trafficking. One such NGO is Mission Border Hope. Every day, it moves up to 1,000 people who are here illegally. It's run by Valeria Wheeler, who is married to Victor Wheeler. He runs the Eagle Pass News Leader and is close friends with Republican Congressman Tony Gonzalez, as you can see here in this picture of the two of them together in Washington, D.C. For the good of his district and constituents, would Representative Gonzalez vote to end the busing and secure the border? That's a good question. It also begs the question how many of our representatives have close ties to those who become part of this billion-dollar industry of unlawful, unregulated, and unrestricted amnesty. In March 2022, to prevent any delay in the flow of illegals across our border, the Department of Homeland Security ordered the release and later the parole of over 200,000 people here illegally from one of 4 countries: Venezuela, Cuba, Nicaragua, and Colombia. That population is larger than the city of Brownsville, Texas. It's amazing how many of those who cross illegally today without identification tell Border Patrol or other law enforcement that they are from one of those 4 countries when apprehended. Remember the person interviewed earlier who said he was from Venezuela? He also said that his 2 friends who came with him across the river were from Colombia. Whether it's a non-government organization that buses those here illegally to places throughout the United States, or the government itself, as Texas is doing, this practice ignores the very purpose an immigration system serves. Those who are born here have the inherent right to be here. Hopefully, we teach them to embrace a culture that respects the life and property of everyone here. But those not born here should only be allowed if they prove themselves to be a benefit to all of us and intend no one any harm. That's the exact purpose of an immigration system. While it might be amusing to see the open borders crowd get annoyed at having illegals dropped off in their city, no one can assure Texans or Americans with a vetted certainty that these people are a benefit to all of us. There is no way every one of those people have no ties to the cartels. This policy of busing or flying those who come here illegally, regardless of who does it, is a massive gamble with the lives and property of all of us. This is not about party. This is not about personalities. It's not about scoring political points. It's only about the policy of protecting the life and property of American citizens first. Whichever candidate on the ballot will put American citizens first should get our vote, regardless of whether they are affiliated with a political party or independent on the ballot. As the day begins in Del Rio, the buses wait in the morning light to shuttle those here illegally. Not far away is the Stripes gas station on Veterans Boulevard, which also serves as the Greyhound bus depot. Once they come across the border, get processed at the Department of Public Health and receive their papers and tickets for transportation, the buses take them to Stripes, and soon off they go to a city somewhere in the United States, to a city near you, to a neighborhood near you, and it's happening right now. So what can you do about it? We live in a time when heroes are few and far between. You can be a hero. Your elected representative can be a hero. 8 counties in Texas recently held a press conference and declared that the U.S. is under invasion. 2 more counties have joined in that declaration. What if every county in Texas did this? What if we leaned on our county sheriffs and our county commissioners to issue a declaration of invasion? What if 50, 100, 150 counties in Texas declared invasion? What if every county did? We hear all of the time that every state is a border state. You've seen with your own eyes that this is not just a problem at the border, but that the people who come here illegally are shipped to cities throughout America.
You are not aware of how serious the border crisis is. Imagine we have illegals coming into this country from over 175 different countries. A lot of these illegals have no ID. They come into this country, they get a free ride, get whatever they need, and then they're put on buses and planes and flown anywhere of their choice to infiltrate our society with their agenda. We must put a stop to this.
Not just in Texas do we need county sheriffs to declare an invasion. Every county in the U.S. must do so, and every governor must do so, and then take action to stop it. United, we stand, and it's time to stand up against this invasion, together.
Americans are going to wake up one day and this country is going to be radically different, radically changed. By the time that people get on to understanding how bad the situation is, it's gonna be too late.